Dr. Nicole Carter is a highly accomplished pediatric cardiologist and a single mother to her bright and curious 7-year-old daughter, Maya. Despite her success in the medical field, Nicole often faces subtle biases and assumptions that question her place at the table. Whether it's the casual dismissal of her expertise by colleagues or strangers mistaking her for someone less qualified, Nicole has learned to confront these moments with dignity and strength. When she is invited to deliver a keynote speech at a prestigious medical conference, Nicole steps into the spotlight. Along the way, she encounters challenges that test her resilience. A dismissive senior doctor, an unexpected offer to join a community health initiative, and the weight of balancing her professional and personal responsibilities. But amid the tension, there are glimmers of kindness: a flight attendant who recognizes her accomplishments, a young medical student inspired by her story, and the unwavering support of her mother and daughter. These moments push Nicole to redefine what it means to lead, not just in medicine, but in life. Dr. Nicole Carter rubbed her eyes as her alarm buzzed at 4:30 a.m., a time she was all too familiar with as a pediatric cardiologist. The soft hum of her apartment in Atlanta filled the background, the refrigerator's faint hum, the occasional creak of wood expanding as the building settled. She stretched and glanced over at the framed photo of her daughter, Maya, sitting on her bedside table. Maya's bright grin, framed by 2 missing front teeth, always gave her the motivation she needed. Nicole had spent years mastering her field, becoming one of the most respected pediatric cardiologists in the region. Yet even with her accolades, she still found herself battling the same assumptions, biases, and quiet dismissals she had faced since medical school. Today, she was headed to New York City for the biggest professional moment of her career, delivering the keynote speech at the National Pediatric Cardiology Conference. The topic? Advancements in minimally invasive heart surgery for children. It was groundbreaking work, and yet she couldn't shake the feeling of nerves. She padded into the kitchen of her modest apartment, careful not to wake Maya, who was sleeping soundly in the next room. Her mother, Evelyn, had agreed to stay with Maya while Nicole was away. Evelyn's support had been Nicole's foundation since day one, balancing work, single motherhood, and the countless late-night emergencies of a surgeon's life. Nicole brewed a cup of coffee and stared out the window at the city, still cloaked in darkness. The journey to this moment had been anything but easy, and she had scars, emotional and otherwise, to prove it. The airport buzzed with the low hum of early morning travelers. Nicole checked her bag, her carry-on slung over her shoulder. She wore her usual travel attire, a sharp blazer over a soft cashmere sweater, tailored trousers, and flats comfortable enough for rushing through terminals. She approached the gate with plenty of time to spare. Despite her meticulous planning, travel always carried an undercurrent of stress. She smiled at a family with 2 young children balancing juice boxes and stuffed animals, momentarily reminded of traveling with Maya. "Excuse me," came a voice from beside her. Nicole turned to find a middle-aged woman in a stylish scarf smiling at her. "Are you headed to New York too?" "Yes, I am," Nicole replied warmly, though the conversation felt out of place. "You must be traveling for work," the woman said, glancing at Nicole's professional attire. "Are you with the nursing delegation?" The comment landed like a pebble dropped into still water, rippling through Nicole's thoughts. She had heard variations of this assumption many times before. A nurse, an assistant, anything but a doctor, let alone a specialist at the top of her field. Nicole offered a polite smile. "Actually, I am a pediatric cardiologist delivering the keynote at a conference this weekend." The woman's face flushed. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to assume." "It's fine," Nicole said smoothly, though a flicker of disappointment lingered. Boarding the plane, Nicole stepped into the first-class cabin, a small indulgence she had allowed herself for this trip. Her legs ached from years of standing during surgeries, and the extra space was worth it. "Welcome aboard," a cheerful flight attendant said, glancing at Nicole's boarding pass. "Dr. Carter, we're thrilled to have you. Congratulations on your keynote." Nicole's eyes widened slightly. The flight attendant, whose name tag read Carla, leaned in with a warm smile. "I read about your work in Heartline Weekly. It's incredible what you're doing for pediatric patients." "Thank you," Nicole said, surprised by the recognition. As she settled into her seat, She felt an unfamiliar sensation, a small but reassuring validation of her efforts. The plane began to fill with passengers. Nicole kept to herself, adjusting her tablet to review the final draft of her speech. A tall man in his mid-40s slid into the seat beside her. "Business or pleasure?" he asked casually. Nicole hesitated. She didn't want to seem rude, but also wasn't in the mood for small talk. "Business," she replied, turning back to her screen. The man glanced at her tablet and smiled. "Looks intense. Are you a consultant?" Nicole braced herself. "No, I'm a pediatric cardiologist," she said, keeping her tone neutral. He raised an eyebrow. "A doctor, huh? Impressive. You must be presenting something big." Nicole nodded, offering no further details. It wasn't the man's assumption that irked her. It was how often people failed to imagine her as more than a supporting role in the room. The flight attendant returned, offering drinks before takeoff. "Dr. Carter, would you like water or juice before we depart?" Nicole noticed the man glance at her with newfound curiosity, but she ignored it, focusing on the quiet pride she felt in being addressed correctly. As the plane ascended, Nicole let herself relax for the first time in hours. She closed her eyes and thought about Maya, who had been bubbling with excitement about her upcoming science fair project. "Mom," Maya had said just the night before, "I'm making a model of the heart. I'm going to tell everyone how you fix little kids' hearts and make them strong again." Nicole had laughed, touched by her daughter's innocent admiration. "I can't wait to see it, sweetheart." Maya's words stayed with her now, wrapping around her like a warm blanket. If nothing else, this trip was for Maya to show her that every barrier was worth breaking, every assumption worth correcting. By the time the plane landed, Nicole felt steadier, though the weight of the conference still loomed. She collected her luggage and hailed a cab, her mind flicking through the busy schedule ahead. Panel discussions, networking sessions, and of course, her speech. Arriving at the hotel, Nicole checked in and marveled at the grand lobby, filled with colleagues and attendees. She spotted Dr. Emily Harper, a researcher whose work Nicole admired, chatting by the elevators. As Nicole entered her room and set down her bags, she let out a long breath. The view from her window showcased the bustling streets of Manhattan, a city alive with possibility. Nicole called Maya to check in. Her daughter's voice on the other end was filled with joy and chatter about her science project and a school friend's birthday party. "I miss you, Mommy," Maya said finally. "I miss you too, baby," Nicole replied, her voice softening. "I'll be back soon, and I can't wait to hear all about the science fair." Nicole ended the call and leaned back in the plush armchair by the window. The day had been filled with small challenges, but also small kindnesses, from Carla's encouragement to Maya's unwavering belief in her. As the sun set over the city, Nicole felt a spark of hope for the days ahead. She would face whatever came with the grace and resilience that had brought her this far, knowing that each moment was another step in a journey that mattered not just for herself, but for the next generation watching. The next morning, Nicole woke to the sound of faint city traffic outside her window. She stretched, the tension of travel still lingering in her shoulders. The keynote speech wasn't until the following afternoon, but today's itinerary was packed with panels and networking sessions. She mentally rehearsed the day, balancing her own ambitions with the thought of Maya waiting eagerly for updates. After a quick breakfast in the hotel cafe, Nicole joined the growing crowd in the convention center's main hall. The energy was palpable, professionals from across the country exchanging ideas, reconnecting with colleagues, and attending the early morning sessions. As Nicole approached the registration desk, the staff greeted her with a warm smile. "Dr. Carter, welcome. Your materials are ready, and your keynote details are confirmed for tomorrow at 2 p.m., the young woman said, handing over a sleek conference badge with her name and title prominently displayed. Nicole pinned the badge to her blazer and moved toward the first session of the day, a panel on innovations in surgical technology. She was eager to learn from others and contribute when called upon. The room buzzed with quiet conversations as attendees settled into their seats. Nicole sat toward the front, taking out her notebook. "Is this seat taken?" a voice asked beside her. Nicole looked up to see a man in his early 60s, with a silver beard and a confident demeanor. His badge read Dr. Charles Benton, senior panelist. No, go ahead, Nicole replied politely. Dr. Benton lowered himself into the chair and glanced at her badge. His eyes lingered for a moment before he spoke again. Dr. Carter, are you assisting with the panelists today? Nicole's heart sank, though her expression remained composed. It was always the same assumption. She was here as support, not as an equal. No, she said evenly. I am here as a keynote speaker. My session is tomorrow. Dr. Benton raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. Keynote? Impressive. You must have a unique perspective on the topic. I like to think so, Nicole replied, keeping her tone professional. The conversation ended as the panel began, but Nicole couldn't shake the sting of the exchange. It wasn't the first time she had encountered skepticism about her place at the table, and she doubted it would be the last. Later that morning, during a coffee break, Nicole found a quiet corner to regroup. The day was off to a rocky start, but she reminded herself that she was here for a reason. As she stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, another attendee approached a woman in her 40s with a kind face and curly red hair. Dr. Carter, right? The woman asked, extending her hand. I'm Emily Harper. I heard you're giving the keynote tomorrow. I just wanted to say I've followed your work for years, and it's such an honor to meet you. Nicole smiled, grateful for the genuine connection. Thank you, Dr. Harper. Your research on congenital heart defects has been a huge inspiration for me. The two women fell into an easy conversation, sharing stories about their careers, the challenges of balancing family and work, and their hopes for the future of medicine. You know, Emily said thoughtfully, I've been coming to these conferences for over a decade, and every time I see another woman of color at the podium, it gives me hope that things are changing. Nicole nodded, feeling a small weight lift from her shoulders. Emily's words were a reminder that she wasn't alone in this journey. The afternoon brought more sessions, and Nicole found herself growing more comfortable in the environment. She answered questions, exchanged ideas, and even shared a laugh with a group of younger attendees who were eager to learn from her experience. By the time the day's sessions ended, Nicole felt a renewed sense of purpose. The moments of doubt, Dr. Benton's dismissiveness, the assumptions at the airport still lingered, but they were now balanced by the unexpected kindness of people like Emily. That evening, the conference hosted a networking reception in the hotel ballroom. Nicole debated whether to attend. Socializing wasn't her favorite activity after a long day, but she knew it was an opportunity to make meaningful connections. The ballroom was dazzling, with chandeliers casting a warm glow over the crowd. Nicole spotted familiar faces from earlier sessions and made her way toward the refreshment table. As she reached for a glass of sparkling water, a familiar voice called out, Dr. Carter. She turned to see Emily, who waved her over. Standing with Emily was a younger man in a tailored suit, holding a cocktail glass. Dr. Carter, meet Paul Richmond, Emily said. He's not in medicine, he works in community health initiatives, but he was telling me about a project I think you'd find interesting. Paul extended his hand, his expression curious, but friendly. It's a pleasure to meet you, Dr. Carter. Emily speaks very highly of you. Thank you, Nicole said, shaking his hand. As they chatted, Paul explained his work with an organization focused on improving healthcare access in underserved communities. He mentioned an advisory board they were forming and asked if Nicole would consider joining. I'd love to learn more, Nicole said cautiously, intrigued but unsure if she could take on another commitment. Of course, Paul replied. No pressure. I'll send you some materials after the conference. The evening passed quickly, and by the time Nicole returned to her room, she felt both exhausted and fulfilled. She video called Maya, who greeted her with a sleepy smile. Hi, Mommy. Did you talk about hearts today? Nicole laughed softly. Not yet, sweetheart. That's tomorrow. Did you work on your project? Maya nodded, holding up a rough sketch of a heart model. Grandma, help me cut out the pieces. That looks amazing, Nicole said, her chest swelling with pride. As Maya handed the phone to Evelyn, Nicole shared highlights from the day. Evelyn listened intently, her voice full of encouragement. You're making a difference, Nicole, Evelyn said. And you're showing Maya that she can too. As Nicole prepared for bed, she reflected on the day. The sting of Dr. Benton's assumption had softened, replaced by the warmth of Emily's encouragement and Paul's intriguing offer. She opened her laptop and reviewed her keynote slides one last time. The words on the screen felt powerful, carrying not just her research, but her journey, her struggles, her victories, and the belief that every small step forward mattered. Closing the laptop, Nicole climbed into bed, feeling a quiet determination settle over her. Tomorrow, she would stand in front of hundreds of her peers and show them exactly why she belonged. The morning light streamed through the hotel curtains as Nicole sat at the desk in her room, making final edits to her keynote speech. Her tablet displayed a clean slide deck filled with images of the delicate surgeries she performed on young patients. These were more than just professional achievements. They were proof of her dedication to improving lives, a legacy she was determined to leave behind. She had barely touched her breakfast tray when her phone buzzed with a video call from her daughter, Maya. Smiling, Nicole swiped to answer. "Hi, Mommy." Maya's bright face filled the screen, framed by her bouncy curls. She was wearing her favorite polka-dotted pajamas, looking as cheerful as always. "Hi, sweetheart. How's my scientist this morning?" Nicole asked, her voice softening. Maya beamed. "I finished my heart model. Grandma says it's perfect. I'm going to show it to everyone at the science fair next week." Nicole's chest swelled with pride. "I can't wait to see it, Maya. I know you'll do amazing." Maya tilted her head, her eyes narrowing slightly in a way that reminded Nicole of herself when deep in thought. "Are you nervous about your speech, Mommy?" Nicole hesitated, caught off guard by her daughter's perceptiveness. "A little," she admitted. "But I'm also excited. I get to tell people about the work I do and how it helps kids like you grow up healthy and strong." Maya nodded solemnly. "You're going to be great. You always are." Evelyn appeared in the background, taking the phone from Maya. "Nicole, everything okay?" "Just fine, Mom," Nicole replied, her voice softening further. "Thank you for staying with her. I'll call again after the keynote." Evelyn smiled warmly. "You focus on your big moment. We'll be here cheering you on from home." As the call ended, Nicole felt a wave of gratitude. Maya's unwavering belief in her was a reminder of why she did everything she did. Later that morning, Nicole joined a breakout session led by Dr. Emily Harper. The room buzzed with energy as attendees discussed advances in congenital heart defect treatments. "Dr. Carter," Emily said, spotting Nicole in the crowd, "would you mind sharing your perspective on minimally invasive techniques?" Nicole nodded, standing to address the room. Her voice was calm and steady as she described her methods, emphasizing the importance of reducing trauma for young patients. As she spoke, she noticed a young medical student in the back scribbling notes furiously. His name badge read Daniel Reese, third-year medical student. His wide-eyed focus reminded Nicole of her early days in training. After the session, Daniel approached her hesitantly. "Dr. Carter, your presentation was incredible. I've been considering specializing in pediatric cardiology, but I wasn't sure if I could handle it. Hearing you talk about your approach gave me so much hope." Nicole smiled warmly. "It's not an easy path, but it's worth every challenge. If you have the passion for it, you'll find the strength to succeed." Daniel's face lit up. "Thank you, Dr. Carter. I hope one day I can make an impact like you." Nicole returned to her room to prepare for the keynote. As she adjusted the lapel of her blazer in the mirror, she thought about all the moments that had brought her here. The grueling nights of medical school, the endless battles against assumptions, and the quiet triumphs that fueled her determination. Her thoughts turned to Maya again. "You inspire me, Mom," Maya had said the night before Nicole's trip. The memory steadied her, filling her with resolve. The conference hall was packed by the time Nicole arrived. Rows of attendees buzzed with anticipation, their conversations filling the air with a low hum. As Nicole approached the stage, she caught sight of Dr. Charles Benton seated near the front. His expression was unreadable, but Nicole felt a flicker of determination. The MC introduced her with a flourish, listing her accomplishments and setting the stage for her presentation. Taking a deep breath, Nicole stepped into the spotlight. Her speech began with a story of a young patient named Lucas, whose heart condition had once seemed insurmountable. Nicole detailed the innovative techniques her team had developed to save him, illustrating each point with vivid images and data. She spoke of her mission to ensure that no child was defined by a diagnosis, weaving personal anecdotes with scientific insights. The audience was rapt, their attention fixed on Nicole as she spoke with conviction. She could see their expressions shift, admiration replacing skepticism. When she concluded with a slide showing Lucas, now a healthy, smiling 10-year-old, the room erupted in applause. During the Q&A session, Daniel raised his hand nervously. "Dr. Carter, how do you stay motivated in a field that can be so demanding?" Nicole paused, her gaze sweeping the room. "I stay motivated because I believe in what I do. I see the impact of my work in every child who gets to live a full life. And I stay motivated because I want the next generation, including my daughter, to see that barriers are meant to be broken." The applause that followed was thunderous. Nicole's heart swelled with pride as she stepped off the stage. As the crowd dispersed, several attendees approached her, including Paul Richmond. "Dr. Carter, your speech was phenomenal," Paul said, shaking her hand. "I would love to talk more about how your expertise could shape the community health initiative I mentioned. Your perspective could make a real difference." Nicole hesitated, but Paul's sincerity struck a chord. "I'd be happy to discuss it," she said. That evening, Nicole returned to her hotel room and called Maya. "Did you win, Mommy?" Maya asked eagerly. Nicole laughed. "It's not about winning, sweetheart, but I think I made a difference." Maya grinned. "You always do." As Nicole ended the call, she looked out at the city lights, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. The day had been challenging, but it had also been a reminder of why she fought so hard to succeed. Tomorrow, she would meet with Paul to explore a new opportunity. For now, she let herself bask in the quiet triumph of the moment, knowing that every step forward mattered not just for her, but for everyone she inspired along the way. Nicole awoke the next morning to a soft knock on her hotel door. She opened it to find a neatly dressed woman holding a folder. "Good morning, Dr. Carter," the woman said with a smile. "I'm Michelle, the event coordinator. I wanted to confirm your attendance at the post-conference reception and provide details for the breakout session you're hosting this afternoon." Nicole accepted the folder and thanked her, but she couldn't miss the flicker of surprise in Michelle's expression as her eyes darted to the conference badge on Nicole's blazer. "You're younger than I expected," Michelle blurted, then immediately flushed. "I mean, it's impressive." Nicole smiled politely, though the comment tugged at something familiar inside her. It was always the surprise, the quiet, unspoken assumption that her success didn't quite fit the mold of what they expected. "Thank you, Michelle," Nicole said with practiced grace. "I'll see you at the session later." After Michelle left, Nicole sat by the window, sipping her morning coffee. Below, the bustling streets of Manhattan moved with their typical urgency, a sharp contrast to the weight of self-reflection Nicole felt creeping in. Her keynote had been well received, but she couldn't stop replaying the subtle reactions from the audience. A flicker of surprise in someone's eyes when they realized her depth of knowledge. The hesitation in questions asked, as if they were testing whether she belonged in this space. Nicole's confidence was sturdy, built over years of pushing through doubt and dismissiveness, but it was not impenetrable. She spent the morning reviewing her materials for the breakout session she was hosting. It was a smaller, more intimate setting designed for sharing personal insights about leadership in medicine. Nicole knew these moments mattered just as much as the big stage. On her way to the session, Nicole stopped by the hotel's coffee shop. As she waited for her order, she overheard two men seated nearby. "I'm telling you," one of them said, "Dr. Benton's session was solid. But I don't know about that Carter woman. She's new, right? Might be interesting to see what she has to say, but it's hard to trust someone without the decades of experience Benton has." Nicole's hand froze as she reached for her coffee cup. The casual dismissal in the man's tone sent a pang through her chest. She wanted to turn around and confront him, but she knew better than to let herself get drawn into an emotional reaction. She straightened her shoulders, picked up her coffee, and walked out with her head high. The breakout session room was smaller, but no less daunting. About 30 attendees had gathered, including both seasoned professionals and younger medical students. Dr. Benton, who was listed as a participant in the session, entered shortly before it began. He nodded at Nicole, but said nothing as he took his seat in the front row. Nicole began with a smile, introducing herself and inviting the group to share their own experiences and leadership. The discussion flowed naturally, with participants exchanging insights about balancing patient care with the administrative challenges of modern medicine. Nicole shared her perspective on navigating bias, emphasizing the importance of building resilience. As a Black woman in this field, Nicole said, her voice calm but firm, "I've learned that assumptions about my capabilities will never go away entirely. But I don't let those assumptions define me or my work. Every day, I show up ready to prove that I belong not to others, but to myself." The room grew quiet for a moment before someone spoke. "Dr. Carter," said a young woman in the back, her voice hesitant but earnest, "I'm a first-year resident, and I've already faced moments where I felt dismissed because of who I am. How do you keep going when it feels like the deck is stacked against you?" Nicole's heart softened at the vulnerability in the question. She thought of Maya and the words she often used to comfort her daughter during difficult times. "You remind yourself why you started," Nicole said. "For me, it's the kids I treat. For you, it might be the lives you'll save, the families you'll comfort, or the change you'll inspire. Focus on your purpose, and the noise around you becomes just that noise." The young woman nodded, her expression brightening. Nicole noticed Dr. Benton shifting in his seat, his expression unreadable. After the session, several attendees approached Nicole to thank her for her honesty and insight. One man, a senior doctor nearing retirement, shook her hand firmly. "Dr. Carter," he said, "I've been in this field for 40 years, and I've never heard someone speak so candidly about these issues. Your words are going to stick with me." Nicole thanked him, feeling a flicker of warmth replace the earlier doubts that had gnawed at her. As the room cleared, Dr. Benton approached her. "Dr. Carter," he began, his tone less brusque than before, "I must admit I wasn't sure what to expect from you, but you're proving to be quite the force." Nicole wasn't sure whether to take it as a compliment or another veiled acknowledgement of his earlier doubt. She decided to take the high road. "Thank you, Dr. Benton," she said, her voice steady. "I believe we all have a responsibility to pave the way for the next generation." He nodded thoughtfully, then left without another word. That evening, Nicole returned to her room, exhausted but satisfied. She called Maya, who was excited to share her day's adventures with Grandma. "Mommy, guess what?" Maya said, her voice filled with excitement. "I practiced my heart model with Grandma, and she says I'm ready to be a doctor like you." Nicole laughed, the sound easing the tension in her chest. "You're already halfway there, sweetheart." After the call, Nicole sat by the window, reflecting on the day. The sting of doubt had been ever-present, but so had the moments of connection and validation. Emily's encouragement, the young resident's question, the retiring doctor's words, all reminders that her presence here mattered. As she watched the city lights flicker below, Nicole made a promise to herself. She would keep showing up, keep speaking out, and keep pushing forward not just for herself, but for Maya, for the young doctors watching her, and for the patients whose lives depended on her work. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Nicole was ready. The following day dawned crisp and bright, with sunlight spilling through Nicole's hotel curtains. She stood at the window, clutching a cup of tea, mentally rehearsing her keynote speech. This was the moment she had been preparing for, the culmination of years of hard work, late nights, and countless surgeries. Nicole glanced at the small notebook on the desk, where she had jotted down a few thoughts the night before. "You remind yourself why you started." Those words, spoken to the young resident in the breakout session, echoed in her mind. Today, she would not only share her research, but also show why her voice deserved to be heard. The conference hall was packed by the time Nicole arrived. Rows of chairs were filled with attendees, their badges glinting under the stage lights. The buzz of quiet conversations filled the room as the event's MC stepped up to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Nicole Carter," the MC announced. Dr. Carter is not only a leader in pediatric cardiology, but a pioneer in minimally invasive heart surgery for children. Her innovative techniques have saved countless lives and set a new standard for care in our field. The applause was immediate, but Nicole couldn't help noticing a few surprised glances in the crowd faces that seemed to question whether someone like her could hold such a title. She straightened her blazer, took a deep breath, and walked to the podium. Nicole began her presentation with a story, just as she had planned. She spoke of Lucas, a 6-year-old boy born with a rare congenital heart defect. She described the challenges of his case, the innovative techniques her team had developed, and the moment Lucas opened his eyes after surgery, his small hand clutching his mother's. Lucas is now a healthy, energetic 10-year-old, Nicole said, her voice steady but warm. And his story is one of many that remind me why we do what we do. As she transitioned into the technical aspects of her work, Nicole felt the energy in the room shift. The audience leaned forward, captivated not just by the science, but by the humanity woven into her words. She used slides and visuals to break down the complexities of minimally invasive techniques, emphasizing the benefits for children: shorter recovery times, reduced trauma, and brighter futures. When Nicole concluded with a photo of Lucas holding up a drawing of his repaired heart, the room erupted in applause. The Q&A session followed, and Nicole was ready. Attendees raised thoughtful questions about her methods, her experiences, and the future of her field. Toward the end of the session, a familiar face stood up: Daniel, the young medical student she had met the day before. "Dr. Carter," Daniel began, his voice steady but emotional, "your work is incredible. But what struck me most today was how you shared your personal journey. How do you keep pushing forward when the challenges feel overwhelming?" Nicole paused, letting the question settle in the air. She met Daniel's gaze, seeing not just a student, but a reflection of her younger self. "You hold on to your purpose," Nicole said, her voice carrying across the room. "For me, it's the children I treat and the families I support. But just as important are the people who come after me, the young doctors like you who will take this field to new heights. When you focus on why you started, the challenges become stepping stones instead of roadblocks." The applause that followed was thunderous, filling the hall with a warmth Nicole hadn't expected. As the crowd dispersed, Nicole stayed near the stage, answering questions and shaking hands. Many attendees expressed admiration for her work and her resilience. Among them was Paul Richmond, the businessman she had met earlier. "Dr. Carter," Paul said, his tone earnest, "your presentation was phenomenal. I can see why Emily speaks so highly of you. Our community health initiative needs leaders like you, people who can inspire change while delivering real results. Would you be open to discussing a role on our advisory board?" Nicole hesitated. The offer was intriguing, but she wasn't sure if she could take on more responsibilities. "I'd be happy to discuss it further," she said diplomatically. "Great. I'll follow up after the conference," Paul said, handing her his card. As the crowd thinned, Nicole spotted Dr. Benton lingering near the back of the hall. To her surprise, he approached her. "Dr. Carter," he began, his voice less formal than usual, "your keynote was impressive. I'll admit, I wasn't sure what to expect, but you exceeded all my expectations." "Thank you, Dr. Benton," Nicole replied, keeping her tone professional. "I've been in this field for decades," Benton continued. "But today I realized I still have more to learn, not about the science, but about the people shaping it. You've given me a lot to think about." Nicole nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. She hadn't just changed Benton's perspective on her. She had reminded him that growth was possible at any stage of life. That evening, Nicole returned to her hotel room and called Maya. Maya chirped, her voice full of excitement. "Did you talk about hearts today?" "I did," Nicole said, smiling. "And you know what? It went really well." Maya clapped her hands. "I knew it. You're the best heart doctor ever." Nicole laughed, her heart swelling with pride. "Thank you, sweetheart. How was your day?" "I worked on my science project with Grandma," Maya said. "And I told her that when I grow up, I'm going to be a doctor and fix hearts just like you." Nicole's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so proud of you, Maya." As the call ended, Nicole sat by the window, gazing out at the city lights. The day had been filled with challenges, but also with moments of connection and triumph. She thought of the young resident who had asked for advice, the student who had found inspiration in her words, and even Dr. Benton, whose assumptions had shifted. Nicole realized that her work wasn't just about treating patients or giving speeches. It was about creating ripples, small, meaningful changes that could inspire others to see the world differently. Tomorrow, She would meet with Paul to explore the advisory board role. But tonight, she let herself savor the quiet victory of the day, knowing that every step forward mattered. The next morning, Nicole awoke feeling lighter. The weight of the keynote speech lifted. She had exceeded her own expectations, and the conversations afterward had left her invigorated. There was something deeply satisfying about knowing her words had resonated not just with young medical professionals like Daniel, but even with seasoned veterans like Dr. Benton. Today promised to be less formal, but equally impactful. Paul Richmond had arranged a small meeting over coffee to discuss his community health initiative. Nicole was curious but cautious. Balancing her already demanding career with a new commitment was no small decision. After dressing in soft blouse and tailored trousers, Nicole made her way to the hotel cafe. The space buzzed with the quiet hum of morning conversations, and Paul was already seated near the window, nursing a cup of black coffee. "Dr. Carter," Paul said, standing to greet her. "Thank you for making time to meet with me." "Of course," Nicole replied, settling into the chair across from him. Paul leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Your keynote yesterday really struck a chord with me. I've been in the healthcare consulting field for years, but I don't often hear from leaders who blend innovation with such a personal touch." "Thank you," Nicole said, feeling both flattered and wary. "Tell me more about this initiative you're working on." Paul launched into an overview of the project, which aimed to improve healthcare access in underserved urban areas. The initiative focused on community outreach, preventative care, and partnerships with local clinics to address systemic disparities. "We're forming an advisory board to guide the program," Paul explained. "We need voices like yours, people who understand not just the technical side of medicine, but the human side. I think your experience and perspective could make a real difference." Nicole listened intently, her mind already turning over the possibilities. The work aligned with her passion for equitable healthcare, but she couldn't ignore the practicalities. Between her surgical schedule, her role as a mother, and her efforts to mentor younger doctors, her plate was already full. "This sounds like an incredible initiative," Nicole said carefully. "But I want to be honest, I'm not sure how much time I could dedicate to a role like this." Paul nodded, as if expecting her hesitation. "We're not looking for someone to take on a full-time position. Even a few hours a month to provide insights or participate in strategy meetings would be invaluable." Nicole considered his words. The opportunity was compelling, and the chance to influence broader, systemic change appealed to her deeply. Still, she needed time to think. "I'll need to weigh this carefully," Nicole said. "But I appreciate you considering me for the role." "Take all the time you need," Paul replied, his tone genuine. "No matter what you decide, it's clear you're already making a tremendous impact." Later that afternoon, Nicole found herself at a networking lunch hosted by the conference organizers. The atmosphere was more relaxed, with attendees mingling freely and discussing the highlights of the event. As Nicole sipped her water, she noticed Emily Harper waving her over to a small group of colleagues. "Nicole," Emily said warmly, "I was just telling everyone about your keynote. You really set the tone for this conference." "Thank you, Emily," Nicole replied, joining the group. The conversation flowed easily, with the group exchanging stories about their careers. One of the attendees, a young surgeon named Lisa, turned to Nicole with wide eyes. "I don't know how you do it," Lisa said. "Balancing your career, being a mom, and still finding time to mentor others, it's inspiring." Nicole smiled, though the words brought a familiar twinge of self-doubt. The truth was, she didn't always feel like she was balancing everything well. There were days when she missed Maya's bedtime stories, when her exhaustion outweighed her patience, and when the demands of her job left her questioning her own limits. "It's not easy," Nicole admitted, "but I've learned to focus on what matters most: my daughter, my patients, and creating opportunities for others. The rest, you find ways to manage." Emily chimed in, her tone light. "And let's not forget, nobody does it alone." "Nicole, didn't you mention your mom helps with Maya?" Nicole nodded. "My mother has been my rock. I wouldn't be here without her support." The conversation turned to lighter topics, and Nicole felt herself relax. It was refreshing to connect with peers who understood the unique challenges of their field. As the lunch wound down, Emily pulled Nicole aside. "Paul mentioned he spoke to you about his initiative," Emily said. "What do you think?" I think it's an amazing opportunity, Nicole replied. But I'm not sure if I can take on another commitment. Emily gave her a knowing look. You don't have to decide right away. But from what I've seen, you have a gift not just for surgery, but for inspiring people. If anyone can juggle it, it's you. Nicole appreciated Emily's encouragement, though the decision still weighed on her. That evening, Nicole returned to her hotel room and called home. Maya answered the video call with a grin, holding up her completed heart model. "Look, Mommy, it's finished," Maya exclaimed, spinning the model in front of the camera. "It's perfect," Nicole said, her heart swelling with pride. Maya beamed. "Grandma says I'm going to win the science fair." "I don't doubt it," Nicole replied. Evelyn appeared on the screen, her face glowing with pride. "How's the conference going, Nicole?" "It's been eventful," Nicole said with a laugh. "I've met some wonderful people, and there's an opportunity I'm considering, but I'm not sure if it's the right time." Evelyn's expression softened. "You've always known how to make the right choices, Nicole. Trust yourself." After the call, Nicole sat by the window, her thoughts swirling. The opportunity with Paul's initiative was a chance to create lasting change, to help address the very disparities that had motivated her career. But she couldn't ignore the reality of her commitments to Maya, her patients, and herself. As she stared out at the city lights, a quiet resolve settled over her. Whatever she decided, it would be with purpose and intention. For now, she allowed herself a moment of gratitude. The conference had challenged her, inspired her, and reminded her of the power of connection. Tomorrow, she would return home to Maya and the life she had built, one filled with both challenges and boundless possibilities. Nicole stared out of the airplane window as the city skyline of New York disappeared into the distance. Her thoughts swirled with everything that had transpired at the conference: the applause after her keynote, Daniel's earnest question, Paul's intriguing offer, and the quiet yet transformative exchange with Dr. Benton. As much as she was ready to return to Maya and her familiar routine, she couldn't ignore the subtle shift she felt within herself. This trip had not only reaffirmed her dedication to her work, but also reminded her of the power of her voice beyond the operating room. The hum of the airplane's engines provided a soothing backdrop as Nicole reflected on Paul's invitation to join the advisory board. His proposal lingered in her mind. It wasn't the time commitment that gave her pause, though her days were already stretched thin. What gnawed at her was whether she could bring the kind of change the initiative needed. When the plane landed in Atlanta, Nicole felt the familiar pull of home. She stepped into the terminal, spotting her mother, Evelyn, waiting near the baggage claim with Maya. "Mommy!" Maya's voice cut through the noise of the crowd as she ran toward Nicole, her arms outstretched. Nicole knelt to catch her daughter in a warm embrace, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. "I missed you so much," Maya said, clutching her tightly. "I missed you too, sweetheart," Nicole replied, her heart swelling with relief and joy. Evelyn approached with a warm smile, her hands resting on the handle of a small suitcase. "Welcome home, Nicole. How was the conference?" "It was transformative," Nicole said, standing to hug her mother. "There's so much to tell you." That evening, after Maya had gone to bed, Nicole sat at the kitchen table with Evelyn, sharing highlights from the trip over cups of chamomile tea. "I gave my keynote, and it went better than I could have hoped," Nicole began. "But more than that, I felt like I really connected with people, like my story meant something to them." Evelyn's eyes gleamed with pride. "Of course it did. You've worked hard for this, Nicole. Your story is inspiring." "There's something else," Nicole said, hesitating. "A man named Paul Richmond runs a community health initiative. He asked me to join their advisory board. It's a chance to make a difference on a larger scale, but I'm not sure if I should take it." Evelyn sipped her tea, her expression thoughtful. "Why are you unsure?" Nicole sighed. "Because I'm already balancing so much. Maya, my patients, the hospital. I don't want to take on too much and end up failing at everything." Evelyn reached across the table to take Nicole's hand. "Nicole, you've always managed to rise to the occasion. But you don't have to decide tonight. Sleep on it, pray on it, and trust yourself to know what's right." Nicole nodded, comforted by her mother's steady presence. The next week passed in a blur of surgeries, consultations, and catching up on Maya's school projects. Every evening, Nicole felt the tug of exhaustion, but she also found herself thinking more and more about Paul's initiative. One afternoon, while reviewing a complex case, Nicole received an email from Paul. It included more details about the advisory board and a personal note expressing how much he valued her perspective. Nicole leaned back in her chair, staring at the screen. She had a vision of Maya, her tiny hands piecing together her heart model, her voice brimming with confidence as she talked about becoming a doctor. That vision became the nudge Nicole needed. 2 days later, Nicole sat in her office, dialing Paul's number. "Dr. Carter." Paul answered, his voice bright. "I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon. I've been thinking about your offer," Nicole began, "and I'd like to give it a try. I can't commit to more than a few hours a month, but I want to help however I can." Paul's enthusiasm was palpable. "That's fantastic news, Nicole. We're thrilled to have you on board. I'll send you the next steps and introduce you to the rest of the team." After the call, Nicole sat quietly for a moment, letting the decision settle. She felt a flicker of nervousness, but also a deep sense of purpose. That evening, Nicole shared the news with Maya and Evelyn over dinner. "Mommy, does this mean you're going to help even more kids?" Maya asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. "It does," Nicole replied, smiling. "But it also means I'll be even busier, so I'll need you to keep being my amazing helper at home." "Deal?" Maya grinned and held out her pinky. "Deal." Evelyn chuckled. "Sounds like a big step, Nicole, but I know you'll make it work." Nicole nodded, feeling a quiet confidence settle in. In the weeks that followed, Nicole began attending virtual meetings with the advisory board. She quickly realized that Paul's team was just as passionate as she was about addressing healthcare disparities. Their brainstorming sessions left her invigorated, giving her new ideas for her work at the hospital. But the biggest surprise came when Nicole shared her new role with a group of medical residents during a mentorship session. "This is why representation matters," she told them. "When we take on leadership roles, we open doors for others to follow. You don't have to wait until you've made it to make a difference. Start where you are and grow from there." After the session, one of the residents approached her. "Dr. Carter, I just want to say thank you," the young woman said, her voice tinged with emotion. "Hearing your story makes me feel like I can handle the challenges ahead." Nicole's chest swelled with pride. In that moment, she realized how far-reaching the impact of her decisions could be, not just for patients, but for the next generation of doctors. At home, Maya proudly shared updates on her science fair project, which had earned first place in her class. Nicole marveled at her daughter's determination and joy. "Mommy," Maya said one night as they worked on a puzzle together, "I think you're like a superhero. You help kids, you teach doctors, and now you're making new ideas to help even more people." Nicole laughed softly, her heart full. "I'm just doing my best, sweetheart. But thank you for thinking so." As Maya leaned against her, Nicole reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The doubts, the challenges, the unexpected opportunities, they had all shaped her into the person she was today. And while there was still much work to be done, Nicole knew she was ready for it. Nicole adjusted her stethoscope as she reviewed a young patient's chart in her office. It had been a long morning filled with back-to-back consultations, but her mind kept drifting to the advisory board meeting scheduled for later that evening. The topic was particularly close to her heart: improving early access to cardiac screenings in underserved communities. Though her days were more demanding than ever, Nicole had started to find a rhythm. Her work at the hospital remained her anchor, but the new role on Paul's advisory board had given her an avenue to address systemic issues that extended beyond her immediate patients. The afternoon brought a patient who reminded Nicole why she had taken on this extra responsibility. Sophie was an 8-year-old girl with a congenital heart defect that had gone undiagnosed until a routine school physical raised red flag. Her parents, sitting nervously in the corner of the examination room, clung to each other as Nicole explained the surgical options available. "The good news is we caught this in time," Nicole reassured them, her voice steady but warm. "With the right approach, Sophie has an excellent chance of living a full, healthy life." Sophie sat on the examination table, her wide brown eyes fixed on Nicole. "Will it hurt?" she asked softly. Nicole knelt to Sophie's level, meeting her gaze. "You'll feel a little sore afterward, but I'll make sure you're as comfortable as possible. And once you're healed, you'll be able to run and play without getting tired so easily." Sophie nodded, her small hand gripping her mother's tightly. As Nicole left the room, she couldn't help but think of Maya. She imagined how she would feel if her own daughter needed such a procedure, and how important it was to ensure access to care for every child, regardless of where they lived or their family's circumstances. Later that evening, Nicole logged into the advisory board's virtual meeting from her home office. Maya peeked into the room, her stuffed giraffe tucked under one arm. "Mommy, are you talking to the helpers?" she whispered. Nicole smiled, her heart softening. "Yes, sweetheart, but I'll be done soon, and we can read your favorite story before bed, okay?" Maya nodded and tiptoed away, leaving Nicole to focus on the meeting. Paul kicked off the discussion by introducing a pilot program to bring mobile cardiac screening units to underserved neighborhoods. "We're hoping this initiative can bridge some of the gaps in early detection," Paul said. "Dr. Carter, your expertise in pediatric cases would be invaluable in shaping this program." Nicole leaned forward, her mind already racing with ideas. "Early detection is critical, especially for conditions like Sophie's," she said, thinking of her patient from earlier that day. "But we also need to address the barriers families face: language, trust, even transportation to follow-up appointments." The discussion grew lively as the group brainstormed solutions. Nicole felt a surge of energy, realizing how much she valued this new dimension of her work. By the time the meeting ended, she had committed to helping design the screening protocols for the pilot program. When Nicole returned to Maya's room, her daughter was already tucked into bed, flipping through the pages of her favorite book. "Mommy, did you tell the helpers about the hearts?" Maya asked as Nicole sat beside her. "I did," Nicole replied, smoothing Maya's hair. "We're working on a way to help kids like Sophie get the care they need sooner." Maya's eyes widened. "Is Sophie okay?" "She will be," Nicole said. "But that's why we're doing this work, to make sure more kids can grow up healthy and strong." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe I can help when I grow up, too." "You can do anything you set your mind to," Nicole said, leaning down to kiss her forehead. The following weekend, Nicole and Maya visited the Children's Science Museum, a treat Maya had been begging for all week. As they wandered through the exhibits, Maya gravitated toward a section on human anatomy, her eyes lighting up when she spotted an interactive model of a beating heart. "Mommy, look!" she exclaimed, pressing buttons to light up different parts of the heart. "This is just like my science project." Nicole crouched beside her, watching as Maya excitedly explained the flow of blood through the chambers. "You're a natural, Maya," Nicole said, her voice filled with pride. "One day, you're going to teach others about this." Maya grinned, her confidence shining. As they walked back to the car, Nicole noticed a family struggling with a stroller on the museum steps. Without hesitation, she stepped forward to help, holding the door as they maneuvered through. "Thank you so much," the mother said, her face flushed with effort. "It's been a long day." Nicole smiled warmly. "I understand. I have a daughter, too." As they exchanged small pleasantries, Nicole couldn't help but think of the connection she was building every day through her work, her new role, and even simple moments like this. That night, as she tucked Maya into bed, Nicole reflected on the day. The museum visit, the advisory board meeting, Sophie's appointment, it all pointed to a future she wanted to build, not just for her patients, but for Maya and others like her. The work ahead would be challenging, but Nicole felt ready. Each step she took was a seed planted, growing toward something greater. As Maya drifted off to sleep, Nicole whispered, "We're going to do amazing things, Maya. Just wait and see." And as she left the room, Nicole felt a sense of quiet determination, knowing she was exactly where she needed to be. The following week brought a flurry of activity for Nicole. Balancing her hospital duties, her new role on the advisory board, and her responsibilities at home required careful planning, but she found a surprising sense of fulfillment in the challenge. At the hospital, Sophie's surgery was scheduled, and Nicole spent hours preparing for the delicate procedure. Her work as a surgeon required intense focus, but in quieter moments, her thoughts drifted to the upcoming rollout of the mobile cardiac screening pilot. She often thought of Maya, too, and the pride in her daughter's eyes when Nicole explained her work. That pride gave her strength on days when the balancing act felt overwhelming. The morning of Sophie's surgery arrived, and Nicole stood in the scrub room, reviewing the surgical plan one last time. She pictured Sophie's wide-eyed curiosity during their last meeting and the quiet hope in her parents' faces. The surgery lasted several hours, with Nicole leading her team through each intricate step. When the final stitch was placed, Nicole let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "She's stable," Nicole said, glancing at the anesthesiologist. "Let's get her to recovery." As the team wheeled Sophie to the post-op unit, Nicole stepped out of the operating room and leaned against the wall, letting the weight of the moment sink in. Later that afternoon, Nicole visited Sophie's parents in the waiting room. "The surgery went well," she said, her voice calm but warm. "Sophie is in recovery now, and her vitals look good. It'll take time, but she's on the path to a full recovery." Relief washed over their faces, and Sophie's mother reached out to take Nicole's hand. "Thank you, Dr. Carter. We'll never be able to repay you for what you've done." Nicole smiled gently. "Seeing Sophie healthy and thriving will be thanks enough." That evening, back at home, Nicole was greeted by the familiar chaos of Maya's excited chatter and Evelyn's calm presence. "Mommy, guess what?" Maya said, bounding up to her. "Grandma let me make cookies, and I saved you the best one." Nicole laughed, pulling her daughter into a hug. "That sounds perfect, Maya. Thank you." As they sat at the kitchen table, Maya recounted her day, her words tumbling over each other in excitement. Nicole listened with a smile, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for these moments of normalcy. After Maya was tucked into bed, Nicole joined Evelyn in the living room, sipping tea and reflecting on the week. "How's the advisory board coming along?" Evelyn asked. "It's been challenging but rewarding," Nicole replied. "The mobile cardiac screening pilot is moving forward, and I feel like we're starting to make a real impact." Evelyn nodded, her expression thoughtful. "You've always had a way of bringing people together, Nicole. It's one of your greatest strengths." Nicole hesitated, then said, "Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough at work at home, even with the board. I'm constantly pulled in so many directions." Evelyn reached over and placed a reassuring hand on Nicole's arm. "You're doing more than enough, Nicole, and you're showing Maya what it means to lead with grace and purpose." Nicole smiled, feeling the familiar comfort of her mother's unwavering support. The next day, Nicole received a surprise email from Paul. "Dr. Carter," the message began, "your input on the pilot program has been transformative. The team has decided to fast-track the implementation based on your recommendations. We're excited to see the impact this will have on the community." Nicole read the email twice, her heart swelling with pride. Later that afternoon, while on rounds at the hospital, she shared the news with a group of residents. "Dr. Carter," one of them said, "how do you find the time to do all of this? Your work with the advisory board, your surgeries, it's inspiring, but how do you keep going?" Nicole paused, considering her words carefully. "I remind myself why I started," she said, echoing the advice she'd shared at the conference. "And I surround myself with people who support me, like my family, my colleagues, and all of you. None of us can do this alone." The residents nodded, their admiration evident. That evening, Nicole and Maya worked together on a puzzle in the living room. "Mommy," Maya said, placing a piece carefully, "I think you're like the puzzle master. You help people put the pieces together." Nicole chuckled, marveling at her daughter's insight. "Maybe so," she said, "but you're the one who helps me keep the big picture in mind." As they finished the puzzle, Nicole felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. She was navigating a demanding path, but it was one filled with purpose, love, and hope. Before heading to bed, Nicole opened her journal, a habit she had recently picked up to process her thoughts. She wrote, "Today, I was reminded of the importance of gratitude for my family, my work, and the opportunities I've been given. The road ahead is long, but I am not walking it alone." Closing the journal, Nicole felt a renewed sense of clarity. She was exactly where she needed to be, and she would continue to plant seeds of change one step, one patient, one conversation at a time. The morning sun streamed through Nicole's kitchen window as she prepared breakfast. The clinking of dishes mixed with Maya's cheerful chatter as she described her latest school project, a poster about astronauts, inspired by a recent book they had read together. "Mommy, did you know astronauts have to exercise every day in space?" Maya asked, her eyes wide with excitement. Nicole smiled as she placed a plate of scrambled eggs in front of her daughter. "I didn't know that. You'll have to teach me more about it when your project is done." Maya beamed. "Okay, and maybe I'll take my heart model to school again." Mrs. Jordan said it was the coolest science project she's seen all year. Nicole chuckled, her chest swelling with pride. "You should definitely show it off again. You worked hard on it." As they ate, Nicole's phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced at the screen. It was an update from Paul Richmond about the advisory board's progress. After dropping Maya off at school, Nicole drove to the hospital, her thoughts still lingering on Paul's email. The pilot program for the mobile cardiac screening units was officially launching, with the first unit scheduled to visit a local community center the following week. Paul's message had included a heartfelt note thanking Nicole for her contributions and inviting her to attend the launch event as a guest speaker. The invitation felt like a full-circle moment. Nicole's decision to join the advisory board had been uncertain at first, but now, seeing the tangible progress, she felt a deep sense of purpose. At the hospital, Nicole was greeted by a flurry of activity. Sophie, her young patient from the previous week, was being discharged after a successful recovery. Nicole stopped by Sophie's room, where the girl sat on the edge of the bed, swinging her legs. Her parents hovered nearby, their faces alight with gratitude. "How are you feeling, Sophie?" Nicole asked, crouching to meet her eye level. "Good," Sophie said, her voice bright. "Mom says I can go back to school next week." "That's wonderful," Nicole replied. "But remember, take it easy for a little while, okay? No running races just yet." Sophie giggled. "Okay, Dr. Carter." Her parents stepped forward, their voices thick with emotion. "Thank you for everything," Sophie's mother said. "You've given us more than we could ever ask for." Nicole placed a reassuring hand on the woman's shoulder. "Sophie is a fighter. She's the one who did all the hard work. You just keep taking care of her, and she'll be running races before you know it." That afternoon, Nicole joined a mentorship session with a group of medical residents. The topic was leadership, but the conversation quickly shifted to the personal challenges of balancing work and life. "Dr. Carter," one resident said, "how do you handle it all? You're a surgeon, a mother, and now you're on an advisory board. Don't you ever feel stretched too thin?" Nicole smiled, appreciating the honesty of the question. "I do," she admitted. "But I've learned that it's okay to ask for help and to say no when necessary. The key is knowing your priorities. For me, it's my daughter, my patients, and making the healthcare system better for everyone who depends on it." The residents nodded thoughtfully, their expressions a mix of admiration and determination. The following week, Nicole attended the launch of the mobile cardiac screening unit. The event was held at a community center, with children playing on the playground outside and families gathering in the bright, welcoming space. As Nicole approached the podium to speak, she felt a familiar twinge of nerves, but it was quickly replaced by a sense of pride. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice steady. "Today, we're not just launching a program, we're creating opportunities for families to access the care they deserve. As a doctor, I've seen firsthand how early detection can change lives. This screening unit represents a step toward making that possible for every child, no matter where they live or what barriers they face." The crowd erupted in applause, and Nicole glanced at Paul, who nodded with a smile of approval. After the event, parents approached Nicole with questions about the program, while children marveled at the colorful van housing the screening equipment. One little boy, no older than 6, tugged on Nicole's coat. "Are you the heart doctor?" he asked, his voice shy. "I am," Nicole said, crouching to his level. "What's your name?" "Jalen," he replied. "Well, Jalen, this van is going to help a lot of kids stay healthy, just like you." Jalen grinned, and Nicole felt a warmth spread through her chest. That evening, back at home, Nicole shared the day's events with Evelyn and Maya. "Mommy, can I come to the next van launch?" Maya asked, her face alight with curiosity. Nicole laughed. "Maybe one day, sweetheart. But right now, I need you to focus on being the best student you can be." Maya nodded solemnly. "I'll do my best." As they settled into their evening routine, Nicole felt a sense of closure, not as an ending, but as the start of a new chapter. She had faced doubts, challenges, and assumptions, but she had met them all with grace and determination. And now, she was creating ripples of change that extended far beyond her operating room. Later that night, as Nicole tucked Maya into bed, her daughter looked up at her with wide, sleepy eyes. "Mommy," Maya said, her voice soft. "Are you going to help more kids tomorrow?" Nicole smiled, brushing a curl from Maya's forehead. "Yes, Maya. And you know what? One day, you'll help people too." Maya yawned, curling up with her stuffed giraffe. "Okay, but I think you're the best helper of all." As Nicole turned off the light and closed the door, she felt a quiet resolve settle over her. The road ahead would always have its challenges, but she was ready for them. Every decision she made, every small victory, was for the people she loved, the patients she served, and the future she was helping to build. And as she prepared for another day, Nicole carried with her a deep sense of gratitude and hope, knowing that her journey was far from over. As Nicole turned off the light in Maya's room, she paused in the doorway for a moment, a quiet smile on her face. Today had been another step forward, a day filled with purpose, love, and the small victories that made it all worthwhile. If you enjoyed following Nicole's journey of resilience, hope, and change, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay connected with more inspiring stories. Together, let's share and celebrate the moments that remind us all of what truly matters.